Hey, I'm Adam,
I'm Dave.
and we're here for another episode of Fiction.
Or nonfiction.
Fiction.
Or nonfiction.
We are continuing our pledge to you to unravel the mysteries of the world, to detangle the myths behind many popular tales, to determine if they are true or not. And Dave, I'm very excited about this episode. We're going to be talking about a subject near and dear to my heart, and I know yours. Do you have any inkling of what this could be?
Adam did not tell me what we're talking about, so I don't know what you're referring to.
Well, I have a statement here. You can tell from the sound of paper moving. I've written it down. The Chupacabra, Spanish for goat sucker, is a legendary creature in folklore from the Americas. For years, people have debated over the existence of this beast, many believers offering what they see as evidence of its existence, while skeptics have remained unconvinced. In this episode of Fiction or Nonfiction, me and Dave are going to dive into the lore behind one of America's greatest myths, the cryptid known as the Chupacabra. How was that? Was that dramatic enough?
That was pretty great.
That was great.
Yeah.
So, Dave, the Chupacabra, it's a cryptid. Well, I guess we should.
What is that?
Yeah, we should unpack that. What is a cryptid? Do you know what that is?
I don't know. I always thought the Chupacabra was like a half wolf, half dog thing.
You know, I'm so glad you said that, because usually I'm accustomed to you saying something like, oh, I thought it was like an off-menu item at Taco Bell or something like
What? First of all, no.
that. Okay, but what is a cryptid? That's what we're asking. So, a cryptid is basically a animal that there's a lot of folklore or there's a lot of anecdotal evidence to say exist, but there's no tangible proof to say it exists. So something like the Sasquatch or the Loch Ness Monster. Nothing tangibly to state that these creatures actually exist in real life.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Are you telling me that Sasquatch and the Loch Ness Monster are not best friends?
They could be. We don't know. That's the whole thing about a cryptid.
Okay.
So on this episode of Fiction or Nonfiction, we're going to determine whether or not El Chupacabra is real. That's right. Windsor Public Library is going to break down this story for you. And I got to know, Dave, before we get into this and I present you with the evidences, what's your take on El Chupacabra? Well, actually, maybe we should start by asking, what do you know of El Chupacabra?
I only know it's like a mythic thing. It's some kind of wolf dog creature. And it was in that one episode of the Mike Tyson Mysteries.
Great reference point.
But other than that, I just know it's like a myth that's been around for quite some time. And I don't know if it's been proven to be real or not.
Okay, well, we're going to determine that. So you're not really sure, but at this point, blind stab in the dark, what do you feel? Is El Chupacabra real or not real?
I'm going to say I hope it's not because it sounds scary.
Before we get into some of the evidence for why El Chupacabra exists or does not exist, let's give some context about this creature. El Chupacabra sightings began back in Puerto Rico in 1995. These were the first reported sightings of the creature. However, Chupacabra has been suspected of livestock attacks going back as far as 1975, the first recorded incident being in a small Puerto Rican town called Moca. And these were particularly bizarre deaths. Why do you think that these were bizarre deaths?
Because it was from a Chupacabra?
Well, that mystery solved. No. But what do you think made these particular livestock killings so bizarre?
Maybe the way that it happened, it had like a specific mark that wasn't normal to a normal animal.
Okay.
Wild animal.
You're getting there. So, indeed, there was something very bizarre. This particular killing spree saw all the blood drained from the livestock animals.
Okay.
So, initially, residents assumed this to be the work of a satanic cult.
Oh.
As one does.
Or, okay.
I just think that's kind of funny. It's not just a satanic cult.
Okay. Vampires too.
Yeah, and vampires too, of course. Well, and that's where the real mystery starts. Because everyone suspected this could have been a fringe cult doing this until more killings came to be recorded across the island and spread. So this is where the first real Chupacabra sightings take place. The first reported suspected Chupacabra attack occurred in March of 1995, when 8 sheep were discovered dead in Puerto Rico, each with 3 puncture wounds in the chest area and all reportedly drained of their blood.
I feel like at this point in the episode that there's some unsolved mysteries type music playing underneath, because like you're scaring the out of me.
It's a scary thing. Like you just go for a walk. Let's say you're a Puerto Rican farmer. Want a beautiful morning. I'm gonna go for a stroll. Gonna go up to my cow. There's Betsy. What happened to Betsy?
Oh man. Yeah. I don't know what to say.
It's a scary thought. Well, not only did these attacks occur over the preceding months, more attacks occurred, including an eyewitness account in August by Madeline Tolentino, who reported seeing the creature. And this is the crazy thing, because there were 8 killings originally. In this town, they reported 150 farm animals killed.
Now, was this one of those things where it got kind of out of control with the way people were reporting it, or I don't know?
Well, we're going to have to determine that. Now, I will say, as more reports came to light, the geography spread as well. So the initial reports were in these small towns in Puerto Rico, but they soon spread as far south as Chile and as far north as Maine.
Oh, wow, that's a big gap there.
Yep, and these included many eyewitness accounts of reported Chupacabra sightings.
So earlier I said it's some kind of wolf dog, but really it's some kind of vampire wolf dog.
And this is the interesting thing, which I think has created so much tension within, can I call it El Chupacabra culture? I think I can.
I don't know.
Because there are great variations in the descriptions of what these creatures look like. So some of them are described as being dog-like. Some are described as being very heavy-looking creatures, kind of like the size of a small bear. And some, and this was really in line with the original Puerto Rican descriptions of these creatures, were described as bipedal, reptilian, alien-looking creatures.
Wow.
Now, I know podcasts are not a visual medium, but I thought it would be a good point, just in case Dave wasn't aware, to bring up an artist rendering done by our returning guest host, Becky.
I don't like it.
Can you describe it for our listeners?
It looks like a hipster alien with fangs and a tail. And it's giving me the peace sign, so it might also be a hippie.
Well, we just did that so it would look less scary for you.
I don't know if I'm less scared or more scared now. He just looks like he just wants to have a good time.
He just wants to go to Burning Man.
That's not. So what was it again that you said the Chupacabra was? Chupacabra was?
Well,
a cryptid?
A cryptid, yes.
Okay, so is that the same as like a cryptocurrency?
In a way, kind of.
So like, are you saying that cryptocurrency isn't real?
Exactly. No, and that's the funny thing. Like, people wonder, what the heck do people mean when they talk about cryptocurrency? That's what they mean. It's not necessarily real currency. It's kind of like theoretical currency.
It's digital, though.
Yeah, okay. But it's like how these creatures, these cryptids, are theoretical creatures. They could exist. We just don't know.
I'm going to pull up a definition of cryptocurrency just to provide a little bit more information for our listeners.
Now, while you do that, I'm wondering, does El Chupacabra purchase stuff using cryptocurrency?
I sure hope so.
I hope it's Bitcoin. NFTs. So. Yeah. Obviously, talking about the description of El Chupacabra, kind of a nasty looking fellow, but, this raises a lot of questions about, is this one creature? Is it multiple creatures because of the varying descriptions? We're going to be getting into that a little bit more in this episode. Okay. What we're going to do, though, is, Dave, you pulled up a description of cryptocurrency. What is it?
Cryptocurrencies are digital assets and decentralized systems that allow for secure online payments. So basically, it's a form of exchange, as you mentioned, it's not physical currency, but it's done digitally. There's different types like Bitcoin and a whole bunch of different ones. But I just wanted to provide a basic definition that I was able to find through the internet. And if you're wondering where I got that from, it's from Investopedia, which is a stock-oriented website.
With cryptocurrency, it's interesting because it relies upon belief in investment. If no one bought Bitcoin, its value would just plummet. It would be worthless.
Theoretically, they're immune to government interference or manipulation by the way that they're set up.
You know what we should set up? We should set up El Chupacabra coins. Chupa coins.
Crypto tubas. Crypto tubas.
That's a name that rolls off the tongue.
Hey, do we often go off topic in these shows?
Oh, frequently.
I apologize to everyone out there.
We go off topic as much as El Chupacabra's description changes.
Okay.
But we're going to get into this because I'm going to come back to you, and I want to check in on how you're feeling about this, because there was a lull of these Chupacabra sightings, but then they spiked around 2004 when something began attacking livestock in southern Texas communities. In fact, a farmer shot one of the offenders, and later, more farmers shot and displayed the carcasses of what they described to be El Chupacabra. And indeed, these creatures looked bizarre. They were hairless, snarly-looking four-legged creatures with proportions that didn't quite look like dogs or any known domesticated animal. We have this information now, going to a relatively recent point in history, 2004. What's your take on it now, Dave? So far, with all the information you have, are you pro Chupacabra? Are you faux Chupacabra?
I think that they're a form of some wild animal. I don't know any more than that. I'm not saying they don't exist, and I'm not saying they do. I don't know.
So what do you think about these weird varying accounts of their appearance? Because you have the dog-like appearance. You have these bipedal aliens.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I know the answer, so...
Well, you should tell us.
Do you want me to start getting into that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is where detective work really comes into play, because we need to figure out what we're talking about.
I think it could be multiple animals.
Now, what's interesting, too, is that this monster is kind of the go-to culprit for weird livestock deaths, and has been ever since the mid-90s when the first reported cases came out. And it creates a massive media stir whenever things are cited or these incidents occur. In fact, before we get into the explanation of what these things actually are, I just want to report that there is an official Facebook fan club for El Chupacabra. So you can check that out if you're interested.
How official is it?
I think a Texas woman started it.
Okay, so it's not that official at all.
It's Facebook official, I guess.
Which means...
Nothing.
Okay.
So this is when we move from speculation, because so far, what have we had presented to us in terms of evidence?
A lot of speculated stories and things that people have said. Eyewitness
accounts, anecdotes, not a lot of genuine research.
No documentation, although you did say some farmers shot some.
We're going to be getting to that now, because I'm not the only one that was interested in this. Back at the turn of the 2010s, an author and editor of The Skeptical Inquirer, Benjamin Radford, was very intrigued about all these reported cases of El Chupacabra, and he decided that he wanted to have a definitive example of proof for why this creature does not exist.
Okay.
So he went to do some research, and he started going to Texas to some of these people who reputedly shot and displayed carcasses of a Chupacabra. So he did the most logical thing, and what do you think that was?
He asked them questions?
The dead bodies?
No, the farmers.
I was going to say, well, he did talk to the farmers, so he got some descriptions. He learned about the behavior of these animals during the attacks. But then after that, what did he do?
He got a blurry photo where you can't really tell what's in.
That's it. Good night, folks. No, he did the most scientific thing possible. He took the cadavers and did a DNA test.
Oh, okay.
It should be mentioned, during the course, while the DNA test was processed, yes, he did talk to the farmers, and he noted a lot of the descriptions being given by the farmers matched either wild dogs or coyotes.
Yeah.
anecdotally, just from the behavior that he heard, he was willing to determine it's probably just those. But then the DNA report came back, and it officially stated that these animals were coyotes with severe cases of mange.
Ah, okay. So
So-
what's mange?
Bald coyotes, basically mange being a type of topical infection, a parasite basically that causes your fur, if you had fur, to fall out and can also cause rashes and scabbing. Yeah.
So these are just messed up coyotes?
The messed up coyotes.
Those messed up coyotes are scaring everyone.
Yep. Coyote ugly, if you will.
Ooh. No.
Well, it did. Hey, this study took place in the mid 2000s. It's that time range. Anyway, according to Radford himself, by the mid 2000s, basically anything weird was being called El Chupacabra in terms of its relation to any sort of livestock attacks. So if people found mangy coyotes, carcasses of things like dead raccoons, pigs, or even dried fish in New Mexico, which one of the reported cases of a El Chupacabra cadaver was, he said people automatically, because of the cultural assumption, just called it El Chupacabra, even though none of these things looked like the original cases, as reported, these bipedal reptilian-looking guys with tails.
That's a lot of information. And where did you get some of your information from?
So most of this came from Live Science, but quite a bit of this actually came from Radford's own book, Tracking the Chupacabra.
Okay, and in his book, does he provide resources and stuff like that?
Plenty of resources. He even gets into great detail about the facilities that did the DNA testing, the results. So obviously this is a guy who, he doesn't have, you could say maybe he has some sort of bias towards disproving the existence of El Chupacabra because he is an editor for the Skeptical Inquirer and he is a columnist for Live Science, a website that we've referenced before on this program. But he's also a scientist, and his primary search is for information. So he even said in his book, I'll paraphrase, if he found evidence that El Chupacabra was a real thing, great, I'll make another edition of the book and I'll add a chapter. However, I'm just here to uncover the truth. Paraphrasing what Radford said.
Okay, so there you go.
But this is where we have a division because we talked about the one type of El Chupacabra, the bipedal one, the original sighting. Still no explanation for what the heck that guy was, because we know obviously these four-legged things were very likely coyotes or wild dogs that contracted mange. We still have these guys.
So there's still some unanswered questions.
Mm-hmm.
You say it's an unsolved fact.
Well, we have more to uncover. So, Radford, anticipating this type of criticism that this only explained some of the accounts and sightings of El Chupacabra, but not necessarily discounting all the reported sightings, decided to do something. What do you think he decided to do?
Make an artist's rendering of a chupacabra.
Well, I hope so. You know, I haven't actually read a physical edition of the book, so I don't know if he sketched in it. I hope maybe for our thumbnail, we can actually have Becky's rendition of El Chupacabra as our preview image, because I think that's pretty sweet.
Well, you'd have to ask Becky.
But let's just say you were Radford. Let's just say you're an investigator. What's your first thing? You want to either prove or disprove El Chupacabra
Well, you need
existed.
proof. You need proof.
Okay, and where do you go?
Well, you go to the places where they said it was, maybe.
Exactly. He went to the original locations where El Chupacabra was first sighted. So he set off to Puerto Rico, and he actually traced a bunch of physical descriptions of the monster throughout various newspaper sources to the original description given, August 1995, by that previously named eyewitness, Madeline Tolentino. So what do you think happened in that conversation he had with Tolentino?
She evaporated.
Yes. No. Okay. No, Dave. No. Okay. Now,
She wasn't sure of what she saw, maybe.
actually, what's odd is that she was very, very adamant about what she saw. But, this Radford guy, not only a scientist, he's not some, stuffy, guy who's not, leaving his laboratory. No, he's a man of the people. He goes to the cinema. He enjoys the #1 film of summer 1995, Species. Do you, no, so Dave, for those who may not be familiar with it, what is the movie Species?
I have no idea.
You've never seen Species?
No, is it about like shape-shifting dogs or something?
No, not even. Well, kind of close. So Radford noticed that the descriptions matched this alien-human hybrid creature in the movie Species, which was a bipedal, reptilian-looking creature with fangs and spines coming out of its back. So he thought, this is kind of a strange coincidence that this came out the same year that these sightings were reported. So he spoke to Tolentino. He basically confirmed everything she said. You know, most of her reports coalesced with what she had said before. But then he asked her if she saw that movie Species and if what she saw could have been inspired by the creature itself. You know, a kind of a roundabout way of saying how close was it to the creature in that movie. And she said she indeed could see a comparison because she saw the movie weeks prior to sighting El Chupacabra.
Okay.
I think this is very interesting because Radford made a very logical conclusion from this.
Okay.
Something that is, you know, it's repudiated in a lot of psychological studies that people will see something in a movie or some form of visual representation and they'll start applying that to basically fill in psychological gaps. So you see, let's say, an intruder enter your home, but it's very dark. You only see shadows. Your mind kind of fills in the blanks to what the intruder might look like, even though it turns out that that's not the case. In fact, this is why eyewitness testimony is now very often discredited in court cases because of its unreliability due to the psychological effect.
Okay, so it's similar to like hearsay.
Essentially, yes. Yeah. So basically, he hypothesized that she saw this movie. She saw something in Puerto Rico because of her fear of this movie and the recent exposure to this creature in the movie. She just decided that it looked the same, and she reported that case. And Radford says because of this Hollywood-inspired monster's description, then you saw similar descriptions of El Chupacabra following this initial news report thereafter.
Okay, so it's not 100% proven for sure, but he's assuming that because of this movie and its popularity, people are, saying that this is what it is.
Exactly. And, you can even draw the conclusion from what happened in Texas that quite possibly there were some sort of rabid or wild dogs or coyotes that were attacking livestock, and in the dead of night that you couldn't quite see what the perpetrator was, and being afraid of a horror movie, you kind of just impose an idea of what this attacker looked like. In this case, an alien-looking creature. And then it makes sense that all these other similar descriptions of this creature comes out only after Tolentino's report.
But what about the whole thing about how it said it drained the blood of the animals?
That is still not certain why that could have happened. However, this is not from Radford, but this is a study that's been done by a lot of skeptics trying to disprove the realness of El Chupacabra, that given extreme cases of drought, wild dogs and coyotes will actually kill livestock and not consume their meat, but just drink their blood in order to remain hydrated. And being that this is in such a warm region in Puerto Rico in the middle of summer, that kind of pans out.
I don't know. That answer's still frightening.
There's more, because you could say you're still not convinced. The DNA evidence maybe explains particular cases. Radford's research is just a jump in logic. It doesn't actually explain or refute anything seen. But there are still many compounding pieces of evidence to support that El Chupacabra does not exist. Do you want to take a stab in the dark at what one of these pieces of evidence might be?
I don't know.
It's on top of your head. Come on.
That proves it, or that doesn't prove it?
Well, that disproves it.
Well, there's the whole DNA thing. There's the pictures. Is there pictures?
No pictures.
No pictures.
No pictorial evidence.
Okay, it's no pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Then I don't know.
So I think this is where we have to really get into the science of things. And on this show, we talk about how you can unpack myth and fiction from reality. So one thing we have to consider, if there was some sort of species of this bipedal reptilian creature that drained blood of animals, it would take a couple hundred to a few thousand of these creatures to keep the species alive. Basic estimation. So if each of these animals is reportedly about 5 feet tall and maybe weighs anywhere from 100 to 150 pounds, it would be kind of difficult as well not to have confirmed sightings, as you were saying. No photographs and no fossils. It's weird that there would be no fossil evidence of these sort of creatures on Puerto Rico.
Yeah, that's weird.
Beyond the fact that if the beast managed to hide so well, and they could still keep their presence pretty much hidden from humans, they would still need a lot of food. Because you'd have to figure, again, going back to what we were saying, it would take a couple hundred to a few thousand of these creatures to sustain the species. So they would need a lot more food than just a couple of beasts occasionally taken from livestock. So the other question is, where are all the other animal attacks? Where is all the other evidence of the attacks taking place to support a species like this existing?
I don't know.
Yep. And, the other thing to refute the evidence of this creature's existence, why did the sightings and evidence for it, and I'm using air quotes for evidence, only come around in 1975?
75?
Yep. 1975 was when those first cattle mutilation cases took place. So the question is raised, if this creature was somehow inhabiting this area or was just around the general vicinity for so long, why were these cases only first reported at that point?
That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense. So I think at this point we've proven that the story of El Chupacabra is indeed
Fiction.
Fiction, yes.
Okay, so is it time for a random Dave question?
Yeah, you know what? I think it is. And Dave, here's your challenge for your random Dave question / fact. Is it going to relate to El Chupacabra at all?
It might. My question is, how much cryptocurrency will it take for a chupacabra to survive?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Because what if it just orders in all the time? Oh, maybe that's why there's no reported cases. They've been getting Uber Eats.
Where does it get its source of funding?
Yeah, I think we can safely assure all our listeners out there that their cattle can sleep calmly tonight because the El Chupacabra is indeed fiction.
Unless it's not.
But it is.
Okay.
So, everyone, thanks for tuning into this episode of Fiction or Nonfiction. For more exciting facts, you can just go to windsorpubliclibrary.com or give us a call at 519-255-6770. In the meanwhile, I'm Adam.
I'm Dave.
And this has been Fiction
or Nonfiction.